you've ever thought about studying abroad but think maybe it's not for you, then think again. Studying abroad is a college experience like none other. But hey, instead of just telling you about it, I'm going to show you. My name is Kristen Braden, and as a student at Austin Peay State University, I was sent to France, Germany, and Austria to participate in the European Studies and Holocaust Seminar, an in-depth exploration of the Holocaust in European history and culture. The program is Austin Peay's oldest and longest-running study abroad program, led by Dr. Dewey Browder, professor and chair of the History Department at Austin Peay State University, and Dr. Rennie Brantz, professor at Appalachian State University. This is the first-hand experience of a study abroad program lasting 27 days with 14 other students across 3 countries. I was traveling with students I didn't know too well or didn't know at all. This would be the first time I would be alone. Yeah, there were 16 other people on this trip, but I would have no family and no friends that I've had since junior high. At the airport, most of the other students were meeting one another for the first time as well, but it was a very short introduction because before we could get to know each other, we embarked on a grueling 9-hour flight to Frankfurt, Germany. When we finally arrived in Europe, the group made its way to currency exchange to change in our dollars for euros, which was a bit painful considering that the value of the euro is higher than the dollar bill. We made our way across the French border and then to our home away from home in Strasbourg.
There's our campus, guys.
Holy cow.
It's not bad.
You're right. Is that not spectacular?
Oh, wow, yeah, I need a picture of this.
You snap the first picture, it's the first thing you see, you don't even realize what you're looking at. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is the place I'm going to be staying for the next 2 weeks? And you feel like a speck to this 4-story, 17th century building. You're just going, I think I can get used to this.
The Chateau de Portalis. Yep, this was our home away from home. We would spend the next 10 days here sleeping, eating, and taking classes. The chateau is nearly 300 years old. This place was built before the United States was even an independent country. It's mostly a host home for students of study abroad with a very friendly staff on gorgeous, sprawling grounds. That first day was difficult to get through. Jet lag was horrendous and we were discouraged from sleeping until that night because the very next morning we jumped into our 9 o'clock class. And soon after, we even had an intensive 2-hour crash course in the French language.
Parfait, très bien.
Our chateau is located in the suburban area of Strasbourg, but we made several excursions to the urban center. Strasbourg is a bustling yet quaint city with its heart being the Notre Dame de Strasbourg. This awe-inspiring cathedral took centuries to complete, and my jaw literally dropped when I first came face to face with the gorgeous medieval church. Even Notre Dame in Paris, which I would visit later, did not make such an impression that Strasbourg's Notre Dame did. It was barely a week after we arrived in Europe when we took our midterm and headed for the City of Light.
Paris, Paris.
Oh, thanks everybody. sorry, I'm like really excited.
Paris was a whirlwind of architecture, world-renowned art, and historical landmarks. It was also 3 days of walking, and more walking. I mean, a lot of walking. We walked so much that we were dragging by the final day.
It was just a lot of walking. What did I expect? Not that much walking, but I was wrong. And I remember when I was laying out on my bed after that, shoes were off, socks were off, I was fully stretched out. I remember my roommate came in a couple hours later, I was just like, don't make me get up for anything. I am done for this day.
Even though the pace was demanding and grueling, the very idea of being in Paris kept us going. For me, Paris is one of the most beloved and memorable highlights of the entire trip. Once I left Paris, I didn't remember the insane exhaustion as much as I remember going to the Eiffel Tower, Versailles, the Louvre, and all the other number of things that make Paris the most visited city in the world.
We'll encourage our own cultural development.
Upon our return to Strasbourg, class resumed, we took our final exams, and we bade a bittersweet farewell to the Chateau, Strasbourg, and France itself. So sleepy.
So sad.
As I smile.
By this time, half of our trip was already over, but when we arrived in Munich, we had to adjust to another country, culture, and language. Munich was the birthplace of the Nazi Party. Hitler and his supporters remained concentrated here throughout the span of the Third Reich.
Members of the U.S. Allies, the liberated Munich 30th April 1945 of the National Socialism tyranny.
Much of the city was reduced to rubble during World War II, and its citizens spent decades rebuilding. It was hard to believe that a city so vibrant and modern had a past so dark and devastating. Not far from Munich, we visited Dachau, the first concentration camp established in Germany and served as a model for all later concentration camps.
That was the main gate, and you notice that sign, Arbeit macht frei. That slogan originated here, and then they took it to other camps as they built other camps. And that was the main gate where people entered. There was a railroad track that ran up and down this direction on the other side where they unloaded them and brought them in.
We were in a place of unimaginable grief, horror, and tragedy. We were in a place of unforgettable history.
Here's the gate. Here's the buildings where they slept. Here's where they worked. Here's where they were gassed. Here's where they died. And there are the burners. Like, here's where they were disintegrated into ashes. It's that moment where it really hits you what you're studying, why you're there in the first place. And so it gives a true context, and it makes everything make sense to what you're studying. And it's something that, for a study abroad program, that's the reason why some people do it alone, is to see the original context that they wouldn't see if they were at home.
Study abroad is so much more than just travel. It's so much more than that. You learn so much about yourself, about the culture that you're living in, and also about the academic content that you're studying. There really is no way to duplicate all of that in the classroom.
Site, and there are displays all along the side that you're going to want to.
I think it changes student lives in all kinds of ways. I think it helps them broaden their horizons. I think it also gives them new skills, how to navigate, how to travel, how to interact with people of different languages, different cultures.
our way over the Alps to Salzburg, Austria, birthplace and home to Mozart, as well as a 1,000-year-old fortress that provided spectacular views. We were only in Salzburg for 2 days, but the city's quaint feel, beautiful buildings, and scenery definitely made it one of my favorite destinations. On our last day in Salzburg, we were treated to some rather interesting street entertainment. Once we arrived in Oberstaufen, 3 weeks into our trip, things had become a little strained.
It was probably the point where I was going, I'm still in an unfamiliar setting. So I'm also with a group of people who I don't really know that well, and I didn't really click that well with most of the people on the trip. So it's like, I'm in Europe, and I'm happy to be here, but I'm by myself. Or at least it feels like I'm by myself. I want to go home. I'm so done.
Since leaving France, we were constantly on the move. Most of us were homesick and our energy levels were definitely low. Every 2 days or so, we would have to pack up all our things once again, lug everything onto our bus, and move on to the next town. We also spent every waking hour with one another. So by this time, tension was definitely mounting, cliques had formed, and nerves were wearing thin. The toughest part for me was that I had been accustomed to knowing so many other non-traditional students at Austin Peay. And on this trip, I was the only one, meaning everyone else was 5 to 9 years younger, and that age difference was definitely getting to me by then.
Some students that come back and say, there was this kid in my program and he really got on my nerves. I told you it's going to be a little bit like summer camp and higher ed and in a foreign country, right? It is. That's what it is. Study abroad is never easy. It's not meant to be easy. It's meant to teach you something. It should be challenging.
We left city living as we headed back to Germany. Buildings and busy streets gave way to farmlands and quiet countryside, or as quiet as it can get traveling with 14 other college students. In Oberstaufen, once we had settled into our rooms though, we were treated with an old-fashioned game of bowling, which momentarily was a much-needed pick-me-up.
Yeah! Two! Hello. We're playing bowling right now, and we are very much down. But I think we can pull this off and a miracle win. Cinderella story.
We also had a lesson in cheese making and hiked to the top of a mountain where we had dinner at a popular ski hut. We enjoyed a traditional Bavarian band and learned a few local dance moves. Even Dr. Browder got in on the fun. Once again, we were back to city living when we arrived in Nuremberg. Shortly after World War II, the city was chosen to be the site of the War Crimes Tribunal, or otherwise known as the Nuremberg Trials. The trials is what Nuremberg is most famous for today. Heidelberg was our final destination, where we enjoyed a more leisurely pace. Well, after a 2-hour tour of the city, of course.
And we're not staying in a hotel one night and then just leaving frantically. We actually had somewhat of a free day where we didn't have to think about everything. We didn't have to think about the next place we were going. It was a lot better, a lot less frantic, a lot less almost chaotic at points. And it's the most relaxing part for some strange reason, and that's saying something.
Heidelberg is home to an enormous medieval castle, which is partially in ruins. It is also home to Heidelberg University, Germany's oldest university, established in 1386. And to think that Austin Peay, being a little over 80 years old, was once impressive. Leaving Europe was bittersweet. Personally, I was exhausted, irritable, and just plain homesick. Those last 3 days had seemed more like 2 weeks. In the rush of sightseeing, classes, hours of walking, and for myself filming, a person can get hung up on all the unpleasant moments, which I definitely found myself doing. Yet, once everything is said and done and I was home, things started to sink in. Despite strained relationships during the trip, I did walk away with a few really close friends. Also, I stopped dwelling on the petty things. I stopped caring about why I didn't like this person or what hurt my feelings. Instead, I think about seeing the Eiffel Tower. I think about learning a traditional Bavarian dance, about making my own cheese in a small German town. I definitely looked back on all the thousands of years worth of human history in every place visited, touching, seeing, and feeling the loss and tragedy of World War II and the Holocaust. I imagine how much I'm a part of that history and human experience. Most of all, I think about how much I miss it. Taking that chance and studying abroad made me less afraid of traveling outside the United States. I was able to go to a foreign country and still communicate, even without being fluent in its language. I had never even lived on my own, and here I was in Europe, just by myself. It truly was an emotional and physical roller coaster. Some moments were horrible and depressing, and I just wanted to go home. But most of the moments were beautiful and amazing and beyond anything I could put into words. I went to 3 foreign countries with strangers with no idea of what to really expect. I ordered food, I used a different currency, I elbowed my way through surging metro crowds and stood in awe of the same iconic monuments and art and places that so many before me have stood. I realize that wherever you go, people are mostly the same. We just have a different culture and language to describe what makes us who we are. The long-term ramifications of such a trip and such an experience is yet to be seen and felt. And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
For me, all things considered, even with the low points, even with the high points, I considered it very worth it. It was something I wanted to do for years. It was something that I felt inside that I even needed to do. And so I was very glad that I took that opportunity. So that's one decision that everyone has to make on their own, but by and large, I'm assuming people are going to consider it worth it and do it anyways.
I think it's enormously important in building individual confidence and self-identity. It's a remarkable opportunity, I think, to broaden, to develop new ideas, new skills, meet new people, find new places, build a plan for the future.
There is an array of experiences in international education out there, each one different and unique. Regardless of what you may think studying abroad is like, you have no idea until you experience it firsthand.
I'm just filming the
You can see the size of the park on that.
creepily looking into the camera. Creepily.
But it was